Mia Carter was born into a family that never seemed to want her. From the moment she took her first breath, her parents, Robert and Patricia, already had their hands full with Mia's two older siblings, who were both star students. In their eyes, Mia was simply one child too many. She arrived when the family was barely making ends meet, and her father's immediate response, as she later learned, was a harsh whisper to her mother, "We can't afford another one." Growing up, Mia was constantly reminded that she didn't measure up. While her siblings got praised for every little achievement, "Look at Richard's perfect math score," or "Isn't Caroline just the best at violin?" Mia received only sighs of disappointment. Even when she tried her best, her efforts were brushed aside. In kindergarten, she drew a picture of the family holding hands. Her teacher said it was beautiful, but when she proudly brought it home, her mother barely glanced at it before tossing it onto a cluttered kitchen counter. Nothing Mia did seemed to matter. One gray afternoon, while Mia was helping her mother fold laundry, she asked with innocent eyes, "Mom, do you love me?" Patricia froze for a moment, turning to give Mia a flat, almost irritated look. Then she sighed. "Stop asking silly questions, Mia," she replied. "Of course I do, but can't you see I'm busy?" The tone was enough to make Mia's heart sink. She wanted so badly to be recognized, to be seen as a cherished daughter rather than an inconvenience. At school, Mia found brief moments of solace in art class, where she discovered she had a knack for drawing. She would lose herself in bright colors and swirling shapes, imagining worlds where people cared for each other no matter their flaws. Yet every time she tried to share this piece of herself at home, perhaps by offering a drawing to her father, he would either grunt non-committally or mutter something along the lines of, "Not now, Mia. Later." But later never came. Over time, the message sank in. Her family had already labeled her as the odd one out. The black sheep. The child who was too quiet, too dreamy, and too useless. And so Mia learned to navigate her days hoping for crumbs of affection, while a growing part of her whispered that she might truly be worthless. On the day of Mia's 14th birthday party, she woke up with butterflies in her stomach. Despite her family's disregard, she clung to the hope that birthdays were special, that maybe, just maybe, this would be the day she felt loved. She spent the morning picking out a clean shirt and brushing her hair neatly. Her heart pounded with excitement as she imagined the possibility of a warm smile or a genuine hug. As relatives and a few neighbors gathered in the living room, Mia hovered at the edge of the crowd. The chatter was mostly about her older siblings, how her brother Richard was doing brilliantly on the basketball team, how her sister Caroline had recently won another academic award. Mia's name was barely mentioned, but she tried not to let it bother her. She held onto the small flicker of hope that soon, someone would hand her a birthday card or a present and say, "We love you, Mia." Half an hour passed, and the tension in her chest grew. Finally, her father cleared his throat and addressed the guests. "Well, it's Mia's big day," he said, forcing a grin. 14, huh? The guests clapped politely. Mia forced a shy smile, stepping forward as she waited for her father to say something kind, something fatherly. Instead, Robert let out a dismissive chuckle. "I remember when Richard turned 14, he said, gazing proudly at his son. "We all knew he was going to be a star athlete. But Mia here? She's still figuring it out, I guess." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter passed through the crowd. Mia felt her cheeks burn. He made it sound like she had no talents, no promise, no future. Then, in front of everyone, her father's face hardened. "But if you ask me," he continued, "she needs to start getting serious. I don't see her doing much. Sometimes I wonder if she'll ever be anything at all." A hush fell on the room. Mia's eyes darted toward her mother, silently begging her to intervene. But Patricia just looked away, as though she agreed with every single word. Mia's heart pounded so loud in her ears that she barely heard the next wave of laughter. Just when she thought it couldn't get worse, her father motioned toward her with a dismissive wave. "Blow out your candles, Mia," he said. "At least do that right." Tears stung her eyes, but she bit her lip and approached the small birthday cake. The candles flickered, mocking her. In a trembling breath, she silently wished to one day prove them wrong. Then she blew out the flames. The applause was scattered and half-hearted, as though her own birthday was an afterthought. In that moment, Mia felt a heavy weight on her chest, the culmination of years of subtle and overt rejection. She realized she had been holding on to a fragile fantasy that her family might suddenly see her worth. But if her own father could openly embarrass her on her birthday, maybe he was right. Maybe there was nothing in her worth celebrating. The weeks following Mia's birthday brought new layers of tension into the house. She noticed her father's eyes narrow whenever she tried to talk about her future or mention ideas she'd read about in the library. He would snap, "What do you even know about success, Mia?" And her mother would simply sigh in agreement, as though it was exhausting to even hear Mia speak. One evening, Mia lay in bed, thinking about her future. She had once read a biography of a successful entrepreneur who had built a global brand out of nothing. The story captivated her, and she found herself dreaming about a life where she could make her own money, be her own boss, and never again have to beg for validation. She whispered to herself, "I can do it. If they can, why can't I?" Unbeknownst to Mia, her father was standing just outside her bedroom door. He overheard her talking to herself about success. Rage flared in him, fueled by years of financial stress and bitterness. He yanked the door open without knocking, eyes blazing. "What did you just say?" he hissed. Startled, Mia sat up. I was just saying I want to be successful," she stammered, voice quivering. "I want to prove." Her father cut her off with a bark of derisive laughter. "Prove what? That you're a dreamer." He stepped closer, fists clenched. "Do you think you're better than us? That you'll magically become rich and famous? Don't make me laugh." Mia's eyes welled up. "Dad, I'm just trying." "Trying nothing," he roared. "You're a burden, Mia. You've always been a burden. If you really want to succeed, go do it without leeching off this family." He grabbed a small backpack from the corner of her room, stuffed a few of her clothes inside, and thrust it into her arms. "Get out," he snarled, voice trembling with anger. "I'm sick of hearing your nonsense. Go on, be a big success. See how long you last out there." Mia's heart pounded in terror. She glanced past her father, hoping her mother or siblings would appear in the doorway to defend her. But no one came. She was alone. Clutching the backpack, she stumbled to her feet. With one final furious gesture, her father pointed to the front door. "Out!" he shouted. "Don't you dare come back until you've done something worth bragging about." Shaken to her core, Mia stepped out into the cool night air, the door slamming behind her. The stars sparkled overhead, but to Mia, they offered no comfort. Her entire body trembled. She felt both terrified and oddly free, as though standing on the edge of a cliff with nowhere to go but forward, or down. Mia walked for hours, the darkness of the night matching the despair in her heart. She had no money, no real plan, and nowhere to stay. Every street corner seemed menacing, every shadow a potential threat. By midnight, exhaustion gnawed at her. Her feet ached, and her stomach rumbled from hunger. Eventually, she found herself behind a small convenience store on the outskirts of town. A single dim light buzzed near the back entrance, revealing a rusted metal shed. The door was slightly ajar. Desperate, she peered inside. It was cramped and smelled of old chemicals, with a few rickety shelves stacked with boxes no one had touched in years. Yet it offered a roof over her head and walls to block the wind. Compared to the empty streets, it felt almost safe. "I guess this is home for now," she whispered, stepping inside. She dropped her backpack in a corner and slid down against the wall, hugging her knees. Tears blurred her vision. The silence was broken only by the faint hum of a distant refrigerator compressor from the store. As the hours crept by, Mia tried to find comfort in a single thought. She was free from her father's scorn. But it was a hollow consolation, overshadowed by the cold, the darkness, and the brutal reality that she was alone in the world. Fear kept her awake for a long time, every noise making her flinch. In the faint light of morning, she surveyed her surroundings. Dust motes floated in the beams of dawn. The shed's floor was littered with scraps of old receipts and empty boxes. A family of spiders had made the ceiling their home, weaving tangled webs in the corners. The only solace Mia found was in telling herself that this was temporary. She refused to believe this was her final stop. Her heart clung to the dream that had driven her out here in the first place, to prove everyone wrong. That day, as she drifted in and out of sleep, she replayed memories of her father's sneer, her mother's indifference, and her siblings' derisive smiles. The tears came in waves. She had nothing, no resources, no familial support, and not even a friend to call. But within her, a tiny, stubborn spark of determination glowed. "I will show them," she said under her breath. "One day, they'll regret treating me like nothing." The days that followed were some of the hardest of Mia's life. Money was non-existent. She had no job, no phone, and no clean clothes beyond what she had packed in her backpack. Her life revolved around basic survival. In the morning, she would slip out of the shed quietly, fearful of being discovered by the store owner or any passerby who might report her for trespassing. She wandered the streets, scanning the sidewalks for dropped coins or a possible job notice in a storefront window. Around midday, when hunger became unbearable, she'd rummage through trash cans in search of discarded food. The humiliation was almost too much to bear, but starvation was a powerful motivator. On her fourth day of living like this, something remarkable happened. She found a tattered, spiral-bound notebook in a public trash bin. At first, she picked it up just to see if there were any clean pages left she could use, maybe to jot down a plan for finding work. But when she saw that most of the pages were still blank, an old sense of excitement surged within her. She remembered how much she used to love drawing. In that moment, she made a decision. This notebook would be her lifeline. She would pour her ideas, her frustrations, and her dreams into it. That evening, she huddled in the shed with a pen she'd borrowed from the counter of a diner. Under the faint glow of a street lamp outside the open door, she began sketching. She drew random designs, logos, abstract shapes, and little cartoon characters, anything her mind conjured. She found herself imagining bold brand names, fancy typography, and bright color schemes. Though her stomach growled relentlessly, she lost herself in the creative process. "One day," she murmured, "someone will notice what I can do." Despite her bleak circumstances, a sense of purpose sparked inside her. Every line she drew felt like a thread weaving her destiny. The hunger pangs remained, but the dream burned brighter. And as she drifted off to a fitful sleep, she hugged the notebook close to her chest, determined not to let it slip away into the darkness of her current reality. By the next morning, Mia's pencil sketches had multiplied. Each page of the notebook displayed potential logos for fictional businesses she invented in her imagination: bakeries, fitness studios, art galleries, and coffee shops. The only problem was, she lacked a real opportunity to show them to anyone who mattered. That changed when she met Mr. Lehman, the warm-hearted owner of a modest coffee shop downtown. Mia had been rummaging through a nearby trash can when she noticed an employee flipping a sign on the door from open to closed. Curious and desperate, she pressed her face to the glass and saw the daily special board inside. The lettering was hastily done, almost illegible. An idea formed in her mind. She tentatively pushed the door open. Mr. Lehman, a round-faced man with kind eyes, glanced up. "We're closed, miss." "I'm sorry," he said, wiping down the counter. Mia gulped. "I'm actually looking for work," she began, voice trembling. I see that your menu board could use a better design." I do art." He raised an eyebrow. "Really? Do you have a portfolio or something?" Mia hesitated. Should she tell him the truth, that she was homeless, living in a shed, with only a battered notebook to her name? Instead, she carefully extracted the notebook from her backpack. "Here," she said softly, handing it to him. "It's not a real portfolio, but these are some designs I've made." Mr. Lehman flipped through the pages, his expression shifting from curiosity to genuine fascination. "These are impressive," he admitted. "You came up with these on your own?" Mia nodded, her heart pounding. "Yes, sir. I'd love to help if you need your boards redone. I can do something eye-catching. People will actually notice what you're selling." He tapped a finger thoughtfully on the counter. "All right, I'll give you a chance," he said at last. "I can't promise a lot of money, but I'll pay you for each board design." "Deal." Tears of gratitude prickled Mia's eyes. "Deal," she whispered, her voice filled with relief. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, someone believed in her, if only just a little. That afternoon, Mia carefully designed a new chalkboard menu with elegant lettering and inviting illustrations of coffee cups and pastries. When Mr. Lehman saw the final product, he grinned from ear to ear. "You've got talent, kid," he said, handing her a small envelope of cash. "Thank you." Mia clutched the envelope, disbelief mingling with exhilaration. It wasn't a fortune, barely enough to buy a few meals, but it was tangible proof that she wasn't worthless. Someone had paid her for her skills. She left the shop with her head held high and tears of joy on her cheeks, determined to keep pushing forward. After leaving Mr. Lehman's coffee shop, Mia walked straight to a cheap diner. She had enough money for a modest meal, but a voice in her head insisted that every cent counted toward her future. Torn between hunger and ambition, she settled on the cheapest sandwich on the menu, just enough to keep her going. When the waitress brought her the bill, Mia felt an unexpected pang of pride. She'd earned this meal herself, with her art. As she slowly ate, she let each bite remind her of the possibilities that might lie ahead. She had never tasted anything so satisfying, not because of the flavor, but because of what it represented, independence, however small. That night, she returned to the shed. The moment she shut the door behind her, Mia laid out the money in front of her on the grimy floor, a few crumpled bills and some coins. Her hand shook as she ran her fingers over them. "This is the start," she whispered. "I'm building something." She tucked most of the money away, resolving to spend it wisely. Perhaps she would buy art supplies or pay for time at an internet cafe. She even dared to think about renting a cheap room someday, where she wouldn't have to sleep next to spiders and breathe in the stench of old chemicals. But for now, she was content to stare at that small collection of money. It was her first official taste of freedom, a tiny sliver of proof that she was not doomed to remain the worthless girl her family claimed. The future seemed uncertain, but also filled with the hope that one day she would stand on solid ground, look back at this moment, and laugh at how far she'd come. The next few days marked a new chapter of quiet determination for Mia. Using the tiny bit of cash she had, she visited the local library each morning, grateful for a place that offered both warmth and free internet access. She'd settle at a computer station with a pencil and her trusty notebook, ready to absorb as much information as she could. Her search topics were straightforward at first: how to make money online, freelance graphic design, starting an online business from scratch. She devoured blog posts, business articles, and free ebooks. She learned about people who had built entire careers selling their design services or managing social media accounts. Each success story ignited her passion further. One afternoon, while scrolling through forums, she discovered a world of freelance platforms where businesses posted requests for logos, social media graphics, and branding materials. Mia's eyes widened. "This is it," she thought. "I can work online without a fancy office or a big budget." Her excitement was palpable. Every so often, the librarian would give her a side glance, noticing her frantic note-taking and whispers of excitement. Mia paid no mind. She was laser-focused. If this was real, if she could truly land clients from anywhere around the world, then her father's scornful voice might finally fade into insignificance. At closing time, Mia reluctantly logged off. She packed up her notebook, which was now filled with URLs, tips, and sketches of potential brand ideas. Outside the library, the air was crisp, and the sun was dipping below the horizon. She hugged her backpack close to her chest and smiled. The road ahead might still be rocky, but for the first time, she felt she had a map, even if it was just scribbled notes and borrowed dream fragments. The library became Mia's second home. Each morning, she returned to the computer stations the moment they opened, vying for a seat. Determined to appear professional, she borrowed a used smartphone from a pawn shop using some of her precious savings. It barely functioned, but it could connect to the library's Wi-Fi, and that was enough. She spent hours creating a free online portfolio using a basic website builder. She uploaded scans of her sketches, logos, illustrations, and mock-ups for fictional businesses she had invented. For a profile photo, she asked Mr. Lehman if she could use his phone to take a quick headshot in decent lighting. He agreed, happy to help. Next came the nerve-wracking process of bidding on small design jobs. She posted her rates low, almost too low, knowing she had to break in somehow. Days turned into a week with no responses, and Mia started to worry. Maybe I'm not good enough, she thought. Memories of her father's mocking face tugged at her heart. But just when she was about to give up, an email popped into her inbox. Client interested in your logo services. Her heart jumped into her throat. She clicked it open with shaky fingers. The client was a small Etsy store owner who needed a simple logo for her shop. The pay was only $50, but to Mia, it was a golden opportunity. She immediately replied, pouring warmth and professionalism into her message. That night, she stayed up in the shed, sketching multiple versions of the logo by flashlight. She scanned them at the library the next morning, perfected them in free online editing software, and sent them off with bated breath. 2 days later, a notification buzzed on her borrowed phone. The client had approved her designs. "I love it," read the message. "You nailed the style I wanted. Thank you so much." Attached was the promise of payment. 50 real, tangible dollars. When the money finally cleared into her newly created online payment account, Mia stared at the number, tears in her eyes. "I did it," she whispered. "This is real." In that moment, $50 might as well have been $50 million. It wasn't just money, it was the validation that her art had value in the wider world. It was proof she was on the right track. The momentum from landing her first client spurred Mia into overdrive. Each morning, she rushed into the library the moment it opened, logged onto the computer, and checked her messages. She searched for new job postings, posted her portfolio link, and even tried to network on social media groups dedicated to small business owners. The librarians began to notice her routine. Occasionally, one would remark, "You're quite persistent, dear," and Mia would respond with a polite smile. They had no idea she was homeless, living in a forgotten shed. But the library had become her sanctuary, her only pathway to a better life. As Mia secured more small jobs, $20 for a flyer design, $30 for a social media banner, she reinvested every dollar she didn't need for basic survival. She bought a second-hand laptop from a thrift shop so she could work even after the library closed, squatting in the corner near its exterior wall to latch onto the Wi-Fi signal that sometimes leaked outside. It wasn't ideal, but it was a step up from waiting in line to use a library computer. Each new project taught her something: how to communicate with clients effectively, how to negotiate better rates, and how to manage revisions. She read business articles about over-delivering and making clients feel valued. And it worked. Many of her early clients left glowing reviews. Still, she faced struggles daily. Some nights, she went to sleep with her stomach growling, the meager funds she earned funneled into art supplies or better software. But every hunger pang was a reminder of her goal. "It won't be like this forever," she'd tell herself, hand resting on her battered laptop. "Someday, I'll look back and be proud that I never gave up." What Mia didn't realize yet was that she was laying the foundation of something much bigger than a side hustle. She was learning skills that would shape her destiny, inching closer to the kind of success her father once laughed at. And in the quiet corners of the library, she felt an ember of hope glow brighter each day. Not everything in Mia's fledgling career was sunshine and success. One of the biggest lessons she learned came wrapped in the bitter reality of betrayal. Early on, she'd caught the attention of a man named Vincent, a self-proclaimed branding expert who seemed impressed by her designs. He reached out with an offer: "I've got bigger clients who need design work. If you work with me, we can split the profits." At first, Mia was hesitant. She sensed something slippery in Vincent's tone. But the promise of bigger clients and more money was hard to ignore. She craved stability. So she took the risk, hoping his guidance might accelerate her growth. For a few weeks, it seemed promising. Vincent introduced her, via email, to a supposedly high-profile client who needed a full brand overhaul. Mia worked day and night, producing a range of logos, mood boards, and design elements. She poured her soul into it, excited by the challenge and fueled by Vincent's reassurance that the payout would be significant. But as deadlines approached, Vincent became increasingly evasive. Emails to the client went unanswered, and Vincent's replies to Mia were one-liners: "Working on it. Hang tight." The final straw came when Mia checked the client's social media page. To her shock, they had announced a brand relaunch complete with new logos and design elements. Her designs, the very ones she had crafted so meticulously. Panicked, she messaged Vincent. "What's going on? They're using my designs, but I haven't been paid." Hours turned into days with no response. Finally, a brief message arrived. "You don't own that work." "I do. Stop harassing me." Mia felt her stomach drop. All her time, effort, and creativity had been stolen. She was left with nothing but the realization that she had been scammed. Fury and heartbreak collided in her chest. She had so little to begin with, and now she'd been used like a disposable tool. For days, she was paralyzed with despair, tears burning her cheeks each time she stared at her laptop. "Maybe I'm just not cut out for this," she thought. Memories of her father's sneering face filled her mind. Despite the pain, however, she resolved not to let it destroy her dream. In a rare moment of composure, she closed her eyes and whispered aloud, "I won't let one con man ruin everything I've built. I'll be smarter next time." It was a bitter lesson, but it reminded her that trust had to be earned, not given freely. And so she moved forward, determined not to be a victim ever again. After the betrayal, Mia realized she needed to change how she operated. She couldn't handle every aspect of the business alone, not if she intended to grow. She had been juggling marketing, design, client communication, billing, and project management all by herself, and it was draining. More importantly, Vincent's deception made her wary of partnering blindly. But she also knew that successful businesses often leveraged teams to expand. One afternoon, she was sipping a cup of cheap instant coffee when a radical thought formed. What if I bring on a few trustworthy freelancers to help with projects? This idea both excited and terrified her. Hiring others meant trusting again, an area where she had just been burned. It also meant paying them, which cut into her razor-thin profits. Nevertheless, Mia took the leap. She hopped onto reputable freelance websites, seeking out talented designers and illustrators who, like her, were hungry for a chance. She made sure to choose people with verified portfolios and solid client feedback. Instead of blind trust, she initiated small test projects. Over time, she assembled a tiny but reliable team of 3, an illustrator named Cassie, a graphic designer named Ibrahim, and a copywriter named Jules. With each new project, Mia delegated tasks, focusing on client acquisition and overall direction. It was nerve-wracking at first. Would her freelancers meet deadlines? Would they maintain her quality standards? But with careful communication and clear guidelines, the system worked. Soon, the volume of orders began to climb. Her tiny agency started taking on more complex branding packages. Mia discovered that she enjoyed the role of project manager, ensuring each element, logos, color schemes, marketing copy, came together seamlessly. While she missed getting lost in design work herself, the sense of leading a team toward a shared vision was exhilarating. Financially, it was a tightrope act. Sometimes, after paying her freelancers, she was left with just enough to buy food and keep her borrowed phone active. Yet with each completed project, her online profile grew, and word-of-mouth referrals increased. She couldn't quite call it a thriving business yet, but it was undoubtedly more than she had a month ago. Late one night, as she huddled in the shed with her laptop, Mia thought of her father's face again. "He said I'd never be anything," she muttered. She looked around at the dusty walls and felt a surge of determination. "Well, I'm becoming something. Just watch." And so she pressed on, confident that the risks she was taking would eventually pay off. About 6 months after Mia assembled her tiny team, fate intervened in a big way. She received a request from an up-and-coming lifestyle influencer named Ruby Torres. Ruby was charismatic and had a devoted social media following of 500,000 people, a number Mia could scarcely comprehend. Ruby needed a comprehensive brand refresh, logos, color palette, social media templates, and a sleek About Me page. Mia poured her heart into the project, working closely with Cassie, Ibrahim, and Jules to create a brand identity that captured Ruby's vibrant personality. They included whimsical patterns, bold fonts, and warm pastel colors, exactly matching Ruby's online persona of positivity and self-care. When Mia delivered the final package, she held her breath, waiting anxiously for Ruby's response. In less than an hour, the influencer replied with pure excitement, "This is perfect. I'm obsessed. Thank you." Mia exhaled a sigh of relief. What happened next changed everything. Ruby posted a series of before and after images on her Instagram, tagging Mia's nascent agency and gushing about the incredible branding team behind her new look. Her followers took notice. Big time. Within days, Mia's inbox swelled with inquiries. Small businesses, fellow influencers, even non-profits wanted the same captivating branding that Ruby had showcased. Suddenly, Mia was in uncharted territory. She was used to juggling a handful of small projects at a time, but now she had dozens of prospective clients. The demand was exhilarating, but also terrifying. Could she handle this much work? Could her freelancers deliver on time? She had no sophisticated project management software, just spreadsheets and emails. Still, she tackled the challenge head-on. Late nights blurred into early mornings. Coffee became her closest ally. Each time she felt overwhelmed, she recalled how it felt to be kicked out with nothing but a backpack. That memory fueled her determination. "I won't squander this chance," she told herself. "This is the break I've been waiting for." Within a month, Mia managed to fulfill multiple high-profile orders, earning more in that short span than she had in the entire prior year. Word of the teenage branding prodigy began to spread, an exaggeration, but one that piqued more people's curiosity. The once homeless girl, living in a dusty shed, was becoming a sought-after designer. And she was only 17 years old. Mia's growth after the viral success was nothing short of explosive. She moved out of the shed, finally able to afford a tiny studio apartment. It wasn't luxurious, just a cramped space with a single window and worn-out carpet, but it had a lock, electricity, and a hot plate she could cook on. Compared to the shed, it felt like a palace. Fueled by her new client base, she rebranded her own business, calling it Carter Creative Branding. The once humble operation now boasted a professional website, updated portfolios, and a client testimonial page that featured glowing reviews from satisfied customers. Mia's youthful determination and knack for understanding modern trends made her stand out in a saturated industry. The revenue climbed steadily. At first, she hit $1,000 a month, then $5,000. By the time she reached her 18th birthday, she crossed the elusive six-figure mark in annual revenue, a milestone she once thought belonged only to people in suits and fancy offices. Now, the possibilities seemed endless. But success brought its own set of challenges. Mia had to learn about accounting, taxes, contracts, and HR policies to manage her freelancers properly. She discovered the importance of scaling sustainably, investing in better tools and resources rather than just pocketing all the profit. Sleep became a luxury. She often found herself working until dawn, fueled by sheer adrenaline and the memory of every insult her father had hurled. One evening, as she finally relaxed in her studio, Mia allowed herself a rare moment to reflect. She remembered sleeping on the cold shed floor, crying until she was numb. That felt like a lifetime ago, yet it was less than 2 years. Tears of gratitude welled in her eyes. "I did it," she whispered to the empty room. "I'm proving them wrong." She knew she still had far to go. 6 figures was an impressive achievement, but she had bigger goals. 7, even 8 figures. She wanted to build an empire, to show the world and her family that the girl they threw away could become something extraordinary. By now, Mia's rising success was becoming local talk. People who once ignored her suddenly wanted to be associated with her. This included a childhood friend named Lila, who had joined in mocking Mia when they were younger. Lila reached out through social media, sending an overly sweet message, "Mia, it's been forever. I miss you, girl. Let's catch up." When Mia saw the message, she felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Anger, bitterness, and maybe a slight tinge of curiosity. But she remembered all too well how Lila had treated her, a friend in name only, who never spoke up when Mia was bullied. She replied simply, "Why now, Lila?" The response she received was riddled with insincere flattery. "I've just been following your story. So proud of you, babe." She even tossed in a few heart emojis. Mia decided to meet her for coffee, mainly to see if there was any genuine remorse behind the facade. The cafe was bustling, and Mia arrived early. When Lila swept in, she wore an eager smile, arms open for a hug. "Mia, you look fantastic," she gushed. During the conversation, Lila kept pressing, "Maybe we can work together? I have all these ideas, and you're obviously doing so well. Could be a win-win, right?" There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the past. Just immediate self-interest. Finally, Mia had heard enough. She leaned back in her chair, arms folded. "You didn't care when I was starving," she said quietly. "Why care now?" Lila flinched, color draining from her face. "What do you mean?" she stammered. Mia shook her head, rising to leave. "I'm not stupid, Lila. I remember exactly how you acted. Good luck with your ideas, but I'm not interested." With that, she walked out, leaving Lila speechless. As she stepped onto the sidewalk, Mia felt an odd sense of closure. She realized she no longer needed approval from people like Lila. Her success was her own, earned through sweat and tears. The opinions of those who once mocked her held no weight anymore. It was a liberating thought, one that fueled her resolve to keep building her empire on her own terms. Mia's hard work continued to pay off, and by the time she turned 19, Carter Creative Branding was on a meteoric rise. She had a larger team now, 10 freelancers, 3 account managers, and even a part-time business coach to guide her. High-profile clients seeking rebrands lined up, and some of Mia's designs appeared in magazines and online publications. Then came the milestone she once thought impossible, crossing the $1 million mark in total revenue. She stared at the numbers on her financial dashboard, her mind reeling. "$1 million, she whispered, letting the weight of that figure sink in. It was far from pure profit, of course. She had to cover salaries, software subscriptions, and other overhead. But it was a clear, undeniable sign of how far she'd come. To celebrate, she took her core team out to a modest dinner. They laughed, clinked glasses of sparkling cider, and shared stories of sleepless nights and frantic client deadlines. Mia felt immense gratitude toward them. She couldn't have scaled this high without their skill and dedication. Later that night, back in her upgraded apartment, a more spacious one-bedroom with actual furniture, Mia let herself dream even bigger. "I'm just getting started," she thought. Visions of a global branding powerhouse filled her mind. She imagined having international clients, multiple offices, maybe even a philanthropic wing to help underprivileged youth learn design skills. Somewhere in the swirl of ambition, she wondered if her family ever thought about her. Did they watch the news or surf social media and recognize her name? The question made her smile sadly. "If they do," she murmured, "they probably still think it's a fluke." Little did she know, her family would soon find out just how much she had achieved, and they'd come knocking with their own selfish motives. Mia's media presence was steadily expanding. She'd been featured on a popular Rising Entrepreneurs Under 20 list, which led to a cascade of podcast invitations and online interviews. Her story was compelling, a homeless teen who built a successful branding agency. It was the kind of underdog narrative people loved sharing. One afternoon, after finishing an interview with a local news channel, Mia's phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. She almost ignored it but decided to pick up out of habit. "Hello." There was a pause on the other end, then a voice she recognized instantly, her mother's. "Mia? Is that you?" Patricia's tone was unusually soft, laced with uncertainty. Mia's breath hitched. She hadn't spoken to her mother since the night her father threw her out. Part of her wanted to hang up immediately. Instead, she forced herself to speak calmly. "Yes, it's me." There was another long pause. "We saw you on TV," her mother said, voice trembling. "You've grown up so much." Mia's lips tightened. There was no "I'm sorry" or "we were wrong." Just an observation. "Yeah, I guess I have," she replied tersely. Before Patricia could continue, Robert's voice cut in. He must have been on speaker. "Mia," he said, attempting a warm chuckle that came off hollow. "We always knew you had potential, kiddo. We're proud of you." A wave of conflicting emotions washed over Mia. For years she had yearned to hear those words. "We're proud of you." But now, they sounded like a forced script. She could practically feel them fishing for an invitation back into her life. Her father went on, "Your siblings and I were just talking about how far you've come. We'd love to meet. You know, as a family." Mia's jaw clenched. She recalled sleeping on a cold shed floor while her stomach growled, the memory of her father's sneer telling her she was worthless. "I'm really busy," she said, voice firm. "Is there something specific you want?" Silence. Then her mother spoke again. "We just want to see you, dear. We missed you." Mia let out a bitter laugh. Missed me? Or missed the idea of me? She was too drained to continue the charade. "I have to go. Goodbye." She ended the call, her heart pounding. She knew they'd be back. Sure enough, her father didn't give up so easily. Over the next week, Mia received multiple calls and texts, some from unknown numbers, others from family contacts she thought she'd deleted. "Mia, please, we just want to talk," read one text. Another said, "Your father wants to apologize." A part of Mia was curious. Could her father genuinely regret his actions? Could he have changed? Ultimately, her curiosity won out. She agreed to a phone call, but on her terms. "I'll listen," she said coldly. "But don't expect me to roll out the red carpet." When the scheduled call time arrived, Mia sat in her office, the door closed for privacy. She inhaled deeply as the phone rang, then answered. "Hello." Her father's voice came through, quieter than she remembered. "Mia, I know we haven't been close. I made mistakes. I said things I shouldn't have said." He hesitated, then continued, "I'm sorry if you ever felt unwanted." Mia felt an ember of hope flicker. "If I felt unwanted," she echoed. "Dad, you literally threw me out on the street." He sighed. "I wasn't in a good place. Stress at work, money problems. I took it out on you. But you were always special. I always knew you'd make something of yourself." The words sounded rehearsed. Mia's heart hardened. "That's not what you told me when you kicked me out. You laughed when I said I wanted to be successful." Her father let out a nervous chuckle. "Yes, well, I was just angry, Mia. People say things they don't mean. Look at you now. You proved me wrong and I'm glad." He paused. "Your mother and siblings are proud too." Something was off. Mia could tell he was sidestepping any real admission of guilt, painting the past as mere misunderstandings. She'd expected an apology, but this felt more like damage control. "Is that it?" she asked, voice flat. Her father cleared his throat. "Well, your mother and I, want to meet up. Have dinner. Catch up on lost time." Mia's hand tightened around the phone. She recalled years of silent dinners where she was barely acknowledged. She remembered rummaging through trash for food, all because her family thought she was worthless. And now they wanted to catch up? She took a measured breath. "I appreciate the apology," she said, "but I'm not sure dinner is a good idea right now. I have a busy schedule." She ended the call shortly after, feeling both hollow and angry. The apology she'd waited years for was superficial at best. And deep down, she suspected that her parents had an agenda, one that didn't simply involve making amends. Mia's suspicions were confirmed sooner than she expected. One crisp morning, she arrived at her office to find her mother, father, and even her siblings waiting in the reception area. Mia froze at the sight. Her father was pacing, her mother clutched her purse nervously, and her siblings, Richard and Caroline, wore expressions of forced cheer. Mia's receptionist looked panicked. "They said their family and insisted on waiting," she explained. Mia forced a tight smile. "It's okay, Maggie. I'll handle this." She led her family into a small conference room, shutting the door behind them. Immediately, her father spoke, voice tinged with impatience. "You've become quite the success, Mia. We're impressed." He gestured around at the sleek conference room, the minimalist decor. "Who would have thought?" Her mother tried a softer approach. "We just want to understand how you've been. We worry, you know. Mia's anger flared. Worry? It's been years. And none of you reached out until I was on TV. Richard, her brother, stepped forward. Listen, Mia, we were young. We didn't know better. But now that you're, well, doing good for yourself, maybe you can help us out. Caroline nodded eagerly. Exactly. Dad's business is struggling. And I'm in college. Tuition is expensive. We're a family, after all. We stick together, right? Mia stared at them in disbelief. You've got to be kidding me. Her father crossed his arms, adopting a stern expression. We raised you, Mia. You owe us for that. It's time to give back to your family. That word, "oh," was the final straw. She let out a bitter laugh. You think I owe you for the nights I slept in a shed? For the time I spent starving because you refused to support me? Her mother's voice trembled with indignation. Don't speak to us like that. We did our best. Times were hard back then. Mia slammed her hand on the conference table. You threw me out and called me worthless. Now you show up at my office and demand money? This is unbelievable. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Her father broke it first, reverting to anger. We are still your parents, he hissed, and you will respect us. Mia glared at him, her voice cold. Respect is earned, Dad. And you lost that a long time ago. She turned to her siblings. And you two never bothered to contact me once, until now. Tears threatened to form in Mia's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Get out, she ordered. I have nothing more to say. Her family looked stunned. But seeing the determination in Mia's eyes, they filed out one by one, hurling final pleas over their shoulders. Once they were gone, Mia sank into a chair, her chest tight with rage and heartbreak. She realized she was no longer the powerless girl they used to torment, and it was time they understood that too. In the aftermath of her family's visit, Mia grew wary. She sensed her parents would try more manipulative tactics. She wasn't wrong. A few weeks later, she received a voicemail from her mother, sounding desperate. Your father is ill, Mia. We need help. Please call back. Concern momentarily flooded her. Despite everything, she didn't wish ill health on her father. But she knew them well enough to suspect a ploy. Still, the emotional tug was strong enough that she decided to check on him at the local hospital. When she arrived, she found her father lying in a bed, looking tired but certainly not on the brink of death. Her mother was by his side, wearing a pitiful expression. Oh, Mia, thank goodness you came, she said, reaching for Mia's hand. The stress has gotten to your father, and the bills. Her father grimaced as though in great pain. We don't have the insurance to cover everything, he said softly. I was hoping, now that you're doing so well. Mia could barely contain her fury. You lied about being gravely ill just to get me here. Her mother shook her head, tears glistening. It's not a lie. He really is unwell. Unwell, Mia repeated, but not dying. There's a difference. There was a tense silence before her father continued. We just need a little financial help. Maybe you could pay some of these medical bills. Mia stared at them, remembering how they demanded money just weeks earlier. She realized they were trying another angle. Pity. She exhaled slowly, forcing herself to remain calm. All right, you want a deal, she said. I'll pay the bills on one condition. You both come work for me. Minimum wage. No special treatment. Their eyes widened. Her mother's face registered horror, while her father sputtered, You can't be serious. Dead serious, Mia replied. If you want me to bail you out, you're going to have to earn it. Her father's face turned red, veins bulging in his neck. I'm your father, he roared, trying to sit up straighter. I deserve your respect, not some low-level job. Mia's expression remained icy. Then pay your own bills, she snapped, turning on her heel. I won't be manipulated again. She walked out of the hospital room, leaving her stunned parents in silence. It was a power move she'd never imagined making, but it was also a clear boundary. If they wanted her help, they would have to acknowledge the value of her business and labor, something they'd once deemed worthless. A few days later, Mia received another phone call, this time from her mother, hissing in anger. "How dare you humiliate us like that?" she spat, the anger crackling through the phone line. "Offering us minimum wage jobs? We're your parents, for heaven's sake." Mia held the phone away from her ear, letting out a short laugh. "You demanded I pay your bills. I gave you a path to earn the money legitimately." Her mother's voice trembled with indignation. "You think we'd ever lower ourselves to work for our child? You owe us, Mia. We fed you, clothed you. You kicked me out at 14, Mia cut in, her tone measured but cold. "I fed and clothed myself for years after that. Don't you dare act like I owe you a single cent." She ended the call abruptly, adrenaline flooding her veins. She was done tiptoeing around their entitlement. She had built her life from nothing. If they refused her offer, that was their choice. She wasn't going to be dragged back into the dysfunction that nearly destroyed her spirit. Word of her refusal must have spread among her siblings as well, because both Richard and Caroline bombarded her with texts, accusing her of turning her back on the family. "Dad always believed in you," one message read, ignoring the blatant history of neglect. Another text from Caroline said, "We're siblings. You can't just pretend we don't exist." Mia deleted the messages without responding. She remembered all too well how her siblings had mocked her or stood by silently while her father berated her. Now, they had the audacity to insist she rescue them, purely because they were family. She locked her phone, her resolve stronger than ever. The days of longing for their approval were over. As Mia's story continued garnering attention, she was invited to speak at a local entrepreneurship panel. Dressed in a sleek black suit, far from the ragged clothes she'd once worn, she stepped onto the stage, her heart pounding. A packed audience of aspiring business owners, students, and media personalities awaited her words. When the moderator asked about her background, Mia told her story with honesty. She described her childhood of rejection, being kicked out of her home, and her struggle to survive. She spoke of sleeping in a shed, scavenging for food, and discovering the power of online business through a library computer. The crowd fell silent, enraptured. Then Mia took a deep breath, glancing at the front row where she spotted a few of her new mentors and team members. "The lesson I learned," she said, voice steady, "is that no one gets to decide your worth but you. If your own family calls you worthless, prove them wrong by becoming priceless." The thunderous applause that followed echoed through the auditorium, sending chills down her spine. People rose to their feet, clapping and wiping away tears. In that moment, Mia realized she had shifted from a victim to an inspiration. The local news cameras captured every word, and clips of her speech went viral overnight. Social media lit up with praise. "That's the kind of motivation I needed," tweeted one user. Others shared their own stories of family rejection and personal triumphs. Mia felt overwhelmed by the response. She spent hours reading heartfelt messages from strangers who felt less alone because of her bravery. Yet, she also knew this newfound spotlight would inevitably reach her family. And as the applause faded, she steeled herself for whatever backlash might come. In the wake of Mia's rising fame, her father's small business, a struggling construction company, finally hit rock bottom. Years of mismanagement and a dwindling client base caught up with him. Debts piled up, and banks refused further loans. Rumors circulated in their hometown that Robert Carter had declared bankruptcy. Meanwhile, Mia's mother faced her own crisis. She had remarried after separating from Robert for a short period, but her new husband left her when he realized she was trying to milk Mia's success. Mia only heard these details through the grapevine, having cut off direct contact. But the news spread quickly. Her parents were broke and desperate, and her siblings weren't faring much better. Then, one stormy afternoon, as Mia was wrapping up a meeting with her team, Maggie the receptionist buzzed her office. "Mia," she said, "your family's here. Again." Mia clenched her jaw, frustration boiling. "They just don't give up, do they?" she murmured. She told Maggie to let them wait a few minutes while she composed herself. Finally, she opened her office door and found her mother, father, brother, and sister huddled together, soaked from the pouring rain. They looked like shells of their former selves. Her father's bravado was gone, replaced by pleading eyes. Her mother's face was streaked with mascara-laced tears. Richard and Caroline each held a damp box of possessions, presumably all they had left. "We have nowhere to go," her father choked out. "Everything is gone." Mia's heart twisted. She remembered how it felt to be alone with nothing but a backpack. She took a slow, measured breath. "And why should that matter to me?" she asked, voice neutral. Her mother sniffled. "We're your family, Mia. Surely you can't watch us suffer like this." In the past, Mia might have caved out of compassion. But she recalled every night of misery, every tear she shed while they lived comfortably under a roof. She stood taller, letting silence fill the space. She could almost taste the desperation in the air. Mia motioned for her family to follow her into a conference room, one that felt colder and more impersonal than the last time they'd been there. They filed in, shivering, their eyes darting around as though searching for any sign of mercy. Mia closed the door gently behind them. "I'll listen," she said, "but I won't promise anything." Her father cleared his throat, trying to regain some composure. "Mia, we're at rock bottom. We just need a loan, a little help to get back on our feet." Her mother chimed in, voice trembling. "Think of it as an investment, dear. We can pay you back once we start over." Richard and Caroline nodded, looking away, clearly ashamed. A part of Mia felt a pang of guilt, but she forced herself to remain steadfast. "Investment, huh?" she repeated. "I offered you a chance to work for me, earn an honest wage, and you refused. Now you want a handout." Her siblings looked away, and her parents fidgeted uncomfortably. "Mia, please," her mother whispered. "We don't know what else to do." Mia studied them, recalling every snide remark, every moment of cruelty. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a checkbook. For a brief moment, hope flickered in their eyes, as though they believed she would hand them a windfall. Then, in one swift motion, she wrote a check and tore it out. "Here," she said, offering it to her father. "It's enough for a one-way bus ticket out of town." They stared at the small amount on the check, definitely not the rescue they'd hoped for. Her father's face burned with indignation. "You call this help?" he spat. Mia's gaze was as cold as ice. "I call it all you deserve," she replied. "I don't owe you anything. I built myself from nothing after you threw me away. So if you want to start over, go do it the same way I had to, on your own." Her mother let out a strangled sob, while Richard and Caroline glared at the floor. Mia turned to open the door. "You can leave now," she said softly. "We have nothing more to discuss." They shuffled out, the weight of their own decisions heavy in the air. Mia watched them go, her heart pounding a complicated rhythm of relief and sorrow. She had made her choice. She would not shoulder their burdens anymore. She had freed herself from the shackles of their expectations and condemnation. The years continued to roll forward. By the time Mia turned 25, Carter Creative Branding had evolved into a multinational agency, serving clients in Europe, Asia, and beyond. She opened offices in major cities, hired hundreds of employees, and introduced mentorship programs for young, aspiring creatives from disadvantaged backgrounds, kids who reminded her of herself at 14. Financially, she had surpassed even her wildest dreams. Investors clamored for a piece of her business, and her net worth soared into billionaire territory. Yet through it all, she maintained a rooted humility, remembering those nights she spent in a rank shed, clutching her notebook of sketches. Her TED Talk invitation came at the perfect time, an opportunity to share her story with a global audience. Standing on the famous red circle, she felt a surge of nerves and excitement. The lights dimmed, and the crowd quieted in anticipation. Mia began by recounting her earliest memories of being labeled as worthless. She spoke of betrayal, hunger, and heartbreak. She then walked the audience through her journey, discovering art, learning about online business, facing betrayal from a mentor, scaling her own company, and ultimately becoming a symbol of triumph over adversity. By the end of her talk, tears glistened in the eyes of many listeners. Mia concluded with the words she had whispered to herself so many times in the darkness of her past. They called me worthless. I became priceless. The crowd erupted into applause, a standing ovation that seemed to echo through the auditorium and into her very soul. Mia paused, letting it wash over her, feeling the electricity of that moment. In the subsequent days, clips of her TED Talk went viral, weaving through social media and news outlets alike. She received countless messages from people inspired by her perseverance, from single mothers juggling 2 jobs to teenagers who felt out of place in their own homes. Mia responded to as many as she could, reminding them that they, too, had untapped power within. Her family never reached out again. Rumor had it they scattered to different towns, each trying to rebuild their lives in quiet resignation. Mia didn't wish them harm, but she also no longer carried the weight of their opinions. She had moved on, healthier, happier, and wholly self-made. Standing on the balcony of her modern high-rise apartment, looking out at the twinkling city lights, Mia Carter felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She had faced the worst of circumstances and emerged not just successful, but unstoppable. And if the ghosts of her past ever lingered at the edges of her mind, she only had to recall the rush of that standing ovation, the applause of thousands who believed in her story and, by extension, believed in themselves. In that stillness, she whispered a final mantra to the empty air. I write my own worth. And with that, Mia turned away from the skyline, ready for whatever new challenges lay ahead, confident in the knowledge that she had already shattered every limit placed upon her. I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story.